Hi everybody, welcome to the Up North Prevention Podcast. I am Molly Harvey and I'm here with Mike Maturin, again, my coworker and friend. We are having a conversation today about vaping. Quick little bit of info about us if you do not know who we are. We are Up North Prevention, which is an initiative of Catholic Human Services. We do drug and alcohol education with youth and adults throughout northern lower Michigan, many counties throughout northern lower Michigan. And today, as I mentioned, we're going to be kind of diving into vaping, what it is, some of the effects, some of the myths versus the reality of vaping. So I'm happy to have Mike here with me today, a vaping expert, if I do say so myself. So thanks for being here.
Thank you very much. It's good to see you again, Molly.
Good to see you too.
Yeah.
So what is vaping, Mike? Can you explain that to everyone listening?
In a nutshell, it's a way to deliver nicotine into your body, in the case of somebody that's vaping nicotine. But it's a way to deliver a product that would normally be smoked into your body without the combustion.
Okay.
And the fire and the burning of whatever matter it is that you're trying to smoke. Technically, it's called a electronic nicotine delivery system, or ENDS. But there is a misnomer. We call it vaping from the word vapor, but really it's not vapor. It's aerosol. So a vapor would be like a water, steam, or a water droplet. This is an aerosol because it takes whatever chemicals or substances are in the e-juice and makes them into superfine micro droplets. And that's what you're inhaling.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
So if we want to dive into a little bit of the myths versus kind of the reality of vaping, one of the things that I hear constantly, especially with youth, is that they have been told or they believe that vaping is not addictive. So, and many of them feel very strongly and they'll say, no, it's really not addictive. Right. I don't get addicted. My friends don't get addicted, and I've been doing it for however long. Right. Is vaping addictive or not?
It certainly can be. A lot depends on the substance. Now, if all there is the e-juice and a flavor, we don't know. It really hasn't been studied because vaping hasn't been around for that long. But certainly, if nicotine is present, it is absolutely addictive because nicotine is one of the more addictive substances known. It ranks right up there on the addiction scale with heroin. So yes, and we all know people who have tried to quit smoking cigarettes, and we know what a struggle that is. I've heard people say, quitting smoking is easy. I've done it 100 times. Well, then it's not so easy. And that's because of the nicotine. It's as addictive almost as heroin. So, and we know that most vape products do contain nicotine, even some of the ones that are labeled no nicotine.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. Anyone can vape is another kind of comment that I hear often from youth and even some adults as well, that vaping is available to anybody who wants to partake, and it's also not illegal. Right. Do you have any comments on that? Yeah,
that's absolutely untrue. And I think some of that myth comes because there are so many, and I just don't understand this, but there's so many parents that provide the vapes for their youth. It makes no sense to me. And so the youth would just assume that it's safe, that it's legal, and all of that. But no, you have to be, it is classified as a tobacco or nicotine product. So Michigan state law technically says you have to be 18 years old to purchase any kind of vape or vape paraphernalia.
Okay.
But federal law, which trumps state law in this case, says that you have to be 21. So to be safe, we say, and most stores you'll see signs now that says you must be 21 to buy cigarettes and or vaping products. So it's not legal for youth to use, period, under either law.
Okay, so they could potentially get in trouble with the law if
Yes.
they choose to vape under the age of 21.
Yes.
Okay, all right, thanks for that clarification. In terms of health effects or side effects of using a vape or something similar, What are those? Another thing that I hear so frequently is, my friends use vapes, I vape, and I'm fine. We're all fine. So you can't tell me that this is actually hurting my body. What are the effects of vaping on the physical body?
How much time do you have? There are so many. And there's so many that we don't know, because vaping, as I said earlier, is a relatively new phenomenon. And there really have been very few studies done to show. A few things we do know. Number one, we know that it affects your brain. The adolescent brain continues to develop until about the age of 25. And in the process then, when you use any kind of a substance like alcohol, marijuana, vape, nicotine, it can cause your brain to sort of, if you will, rewire itself. And it can cause a craving or an addiction, or not an addiction, an addiction for other substances. So as your brain is developing, it learns to depend on a substance. And therefore, the studies are actually showing that you're 3 times more likely as a adolescent that's vaping to turn to cigarettes. 3 times more likely. So it's not doing what they initially sold it as, which was a way to stop smoking. And it doesn't do that. But the other things that are involved, first of all, scientists are still learning about this. So they're finally starting to do some studies, because we've seen some health effects. Right here in Michigan, the very first double lung transplant was done at Henry Ford Hospital because of a youth that was vaping and the damage that happened to his lungs. So we do know that it has effects on your lungs. It can cause COPD-like effects on your lungs. It can certainly cause other respiratory problems. I'm an asthmatic. I know that if I were to vape on a regular basis, that would certainly cause some breathing issues for me. Anybody that has any kind of lung damage certainly should never vape. It can also have an effect on your blood pressure and your heart. Nicotine has a definite effect on your arteries. They begin to stiffen, which causes your heart to have to work harder. So it does have those effects as well. In addition, it can cause headaches, dizziness, agitation, and part of that might be kind of the coming down from the addiction sort of thing. If somebody is a regular vapor and suddenly they're not vaping, we've all seen cigarette smokers that have tried to quit and they're not really pleasant to be around. And the similar thing can happen with vaping because of the nicotine. I'm just trying to think of, there's so many things. The e-juice, the liquid that is actually being inhaled, is full of potentially toxic chemicals. When you superheat some of these materials up, one of them actually breaks down into formaldehyde, which, as you know, is used to embalm dead bodies. So you're inhaling that. Ethylene glycol, which is used as in deodorant. It's used in your car as a coolant. Or an antifreeze, as the technical term. It's also used, let's see, I said deodorant. Oh, it's used as a laxative too. So, but
interesting mix of things.
Yes, yeah, and why you would want to inhale that, I'm not really sure.
Right.
There are things that can become carcinogenic or cancer-causing in there, and the superheating, because there's a heating coil in the vape that heats this liquid up and causes it to become an aerosol. And because you're heating this heating coil so quickly, because it heats when you draw in, it actually is, they're finding heavy metals in the bodies of people who are vaping. Things like tin and zinc or whatever other heavy metal may be in that heating coil.
Wow, so that's interesting. Yeah. Wow, yeah, that's quite a long list. So just a quick thing related to that list. Cigarettes and vapes. You mentioned that there's a lot of similarities in terms of if there's nicotine involved, they can be highly addictive. They can also have similar effects on the body. Would you say that cigarettes are safer than vapes, or vapes are safer than cigarettes? I often hear from youth that they have heard that vapes are actually completely safe, and maybe if there are some side effects, that they're much safer than cigarettes?
I wouldn't necessarily say much safer. We do know that because of the combustion in a cigarette, there are far more toxins and chemicals being inhaled into your body. But one thing I would say, and I say this over and over and over again when I'm giving my public speeches, is safer does not mean safe. Mm-hmm. So is it, is drinking bleach safer than drinking arsenic? Maybe, I don't know. I'm just pulling two names out, but just because one is safer doesn't mean it's safe.
And in addition to that as well, it's my understanding that the amount of chemicals that you're intaking in one hit from a vape is actually equivalent to more than one cigarette. So you're actually intaking more of those potentially carcinogenic chemicals from a vape than you are in a cigarette. Yeah,
you can, and for certain. And just as an example, the Juul, which is the kind of the number one selling vape that's out there, it's the one that looks kind of like a thumb drive for your computer, has a little cartridge in it that's, I don't know, not even an inch, by a half an inch. It's very small. And that e-liquid in there has the equivalent nicotine of an entire pack of cigarettes. And it's nothing for some youth to vape that entire cartridge, over the course of a day. So now we've created a pack-a-day cigarette smoker, the equivalent of.
All right, well, thank you for that information. Other dangers you would like to cover? Anything else kind of related to health effects or potential dangers that you'd like to get into?
Yeah, there are a few. Number one, studies have shown that vaping is the number one choice of nicotine delivery for youth. So that's what they're not going out and buying cigarettes or chewing tobacco or anything as much as they are vape. Now that's become much more difficult now because of the 21 law, and also they're reducing the number of flavors, and that's something we didn't bring up before. All of the flavors appeal to kids, and so if you have a little brother or sister crawling around in your room and they find your vape juice that smells like cherries and they put it in their mouth and chew on it, say it's a Juul thing. That's a very easy thing for a toddler to get in their mouth. If they bite down on it, all of that nicotine, which is one of the most deadly substances known to man, is now going into that baby's mouth and into their system. And just to give you an idea of how deadly it is, first of all, it used to be used as pesticide. And number two, the equivalent of one drop of pure nicotine, drop for drop compared to other substances, it is the most toxic substance known to man. So 2 drops of pure nicotine in the palm of your hand can kill you. So we're putting these flavors in that appeal to kids, like cotton candy and Reese's and Skittles. Now, I love my Skittles. That's my favorite candy, but I sure as heck don't want to smoke it. So it's there to appeal to youth, regardless of what the industry says. So because we appeal to the youth, it's become their number one choice. But we also know, as I mentioned earlier, that it makes them 3 times more likely to actually turn to cigarettes. And so that's a bad thing. That's a danger. Another danger that's not talked about very often is the batteries that are in there are prone to fire and explosion. So we could show you, and it's all over the internet, anybody can find it. We can show you all kinds of cases where people have been vaping and had the battery explode and it's blown all their teeth out, or blown off half their jaw, or caused severe burns, very disfiguring burns. One of the pictures I show in my presentation that I do publicly is I try and show a couple of those types of pictures. One is a person was carrying a vape in his back pocket, and it literally burned a hole in his jeans, the size of a softball.
Yikes.
Well, that's not a good thing either. The heavy metal that we mentioned from the heating coil is a real danger, and over time that can build up in your body and start to cause some problems. There's possible poison inhalation. One of the things about vape is a lot of this stuff is not regulated. So just because if you go to a vape shop and you get something with a handwritten label on it, you don't know what's in that stuff. You really don't. And so you're heating it up and inhaling it into your lungs. We also know that the vape juice has a lot of lipids or fats in it. And that, your lungs are designed to inhale one thing, and that's air. If you inhale water, that's called drowning. If you inhale oil or fatty substances, that fat can adhere to the surface of your lungs and make your lungs less efficient. And it can essentially, what it does is it can cause over time what's called lipoid pneumonia or lipoid pneumonia. And so it makes it more and more difficult to breathe. And we also know that aerosol, being liquid based, eventually condenses. So when it gets inside your body, it has to go somewhere. Your lungs aren't designed for liquid. And so it pools up a little bit. And so it can cause all kinds of problems. And then the one that almost everybody's heard about is called popcorn lung. That's where, and it was named that because it was kind of discovered people working in a microwave popcorn factory were inhaling this substance that was used to create the buttery flavor in the popcorn. Well, that same substance is found in a lot of vape flavors, especially the buttery flavors, the caramel type flavors, that sort of thing. And so those workers were breathing that stuff in long before we knew it was dangerous. And it adhered to their lungs, and a whole bunch of them came down with this lung disease. And they did some investigation and found out that it was this substance. And what it does is it causes your lungs to sort of harden, and it's irreversible. The only real cure for it is a double lung transplant, which I said, we've already had one in Michigan.
Right.
So those are the things that are really, and then the secondhand smoke is the same. It contains the same substances as somebody that's actually inhaling directly from the vape. So it'd be just like cigarettes or marijuana. That secondhand smoke is as dangerous as the vape.
Yeah. Wow. Well, thank you so much for all of that information. That's so thorough, so informative, and hopefully it helps shed some light on the dangers of vaping, and also helps to kind of debunk some of those myths or some of those facts that people think that they know about vaping. Well, if you are somebody who is addicted to vaping, addicted to cigarettes, if you're a youth, if you're an adult, and you would like more resources related to quitting, if you need more information on vaping itself, if you had a question about something that we covered today, feel free to reach out to us. As always, we recommend also reaching out to somebody you trust. So maybe it's somebody in your school, if you're a student, a trusted counselor, teacher, friend, letting them know what you're struggling with, and just asking for help, because there is always hope. You can always get that support that you need, and you can quit, and many people do. And the sooner that you can get moving forward with that, the better. So we're here to support you. You can find us at www.upnorthprevention.org. For more vaping facts, you'll find these vaping facts under our services on our website. Anything else to add, Mike, before we wrap up?
No, I would encourage anybody that is currently vaping to seek help to quit. And as you mentioned, the sooner you quit, the easier it is to quit. And if you're thinking about vaping because your friends are pressuring you, find some support in your decision not to vape. Find people who can support you that you're making the right decision. And do your research. Don't just listen to your friends or Facebook or because it's cool to blow out a big puff of smoke and see who can blow out the biggest one. Do some actual research. Go to government websites, go to medical site websites, go to our website and get the facts and make the right decision.
All right. Thank you so much, Mike. As always, we're here to support you, and thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you soon.
The Up North Prevention Podcast is advancing substance use prevention efforts in northern Lower Michigan and beyond. Learn more at upnorthprevention.org. Subscribe to Up North Prevention on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, and we'll see you in the next episode. Funding provided by Northern Michigan Regional Entity.